This is TLV1.
TLV1 Radio.
Great mixer.
I like television.
This is still V1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis Live! That's just me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. This is Louis Live on TLV1. We got a great show tonight. Brynn, Jonathan, Butler in about 20 minutes to talk about the possibilities of Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather, the possibilities of former President Bill Clinton getting involved with that. Yossi Goldstein to talk about a big game from Omri Caspi, Ben Block to recruit players for the Jerusalem Kings, and much more. But on the line right now, talking about two tragedies in the world of cricket, is CNN's Tal Heinrich. Tal, welcome back to the program.
Hi, hello, Ari. It's pretty unfortunate that we start your wonderful show with such bad news, you know?
Yes, it is. It is sad to do that, but it is important to report on what is going on, and that's what we have to do. So let's start first. Philip Hughes, who formerly was a player, an Australian cricket player, passed away a few days ago. Very freak incident. Tell us what happened.
Exactly. So the world media calls it a freaky injury, a freakish incident, but and it's weird, but still it's very sad to read, you know, these two words. So 2 days after he was struck by a bouncer ball during a game, he was hospitalized, and then he passed away. Only 25-year-old.
Wow.
Apparently he was wearing a helmet. So it was supposed to protect him, but it didn't. And then here comes like a question, you know, regarding the safety of the helmet itself, you know, if it's not protecting the player. But from what I read, what I understood, he was not only hit, you know, in his head, although also in his throat, which means in his neck, or some you know, some vein split, and then the blood flow just stopped. And exactly, it caused an artery carrying blood to the brain to split. So he just, you know, he couldn't survive it.
And you know, I was speaking with Laura before the show started, who's in the studio, knows a bit about cricket. And for those who don't know, the pitch of the cricket, it actually goes on a bounce. It's not in baseball. That's a straight line. So people might think, well, it's from a bounce. How could that hurt him? Well, what people don't know is the original flight is about 160 miles. So even after the bounce, it could still be deadly if it hits the wrong spot, correct?
And it's also, I guess, it's a very, you know, the ball itself, you know, it's not a soft ball or something. It's a hard ball, right?
Yeah.
So if it hits you, I guess, in the right spot, and it's inevitable, right? Although he was wearing a helmet, and so this tragedy had become like a national tragedy in Australia, and even the Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, said that this is a sad and tough event to the entire cricket sports. And millions of Australians were moved, were touched by this incident. 25-year-old, that's very sad. And
there is mourning going on. The funeral, obviously, it's a situation that since it was a player, and you have players on the team that saw that, it's very traumatic, and they actually suspended play of a game because of that. So they
were supposed to play against India.
Right.
The national team is Australia against India, so it was postponed or just canceled.
And I was very happy to see that, because a lot of times when there's tragedy in sports, there isn't really a sign of mourning. If you have a Hartman wrestler that passed away about 15 years ago, Vince McMahon was running that show 13 years ago with the WWE, they continued the show. He died, and then they still did the exact show on that night, and that I thought was very cold. I was very happy to see in this culture, in this world, that they did postpone the game. I was happy to see that.
You know, but you brought up this very interesting point. You know, if I were, you know, Israel is not that familiar with cricket, and we'll touch this point in a minute, but if you were a player, you know, a cricket player, and you were witnessing such, you know, a terrible incident, which is probably inevitable, you know, it can happen, like, to everyone. It doesn't have to be, you know, you doing some physical movement, or, you know, it's not up to you. It can really happen to anyone. And maybe, you know, people should think how such cases could be may be denied in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if something's out there, it sounds like a freak thing. I don't know if anything. I'm not saying anyone should be blamed, but if there was something that could be fixed in the future, they should look at that. Again, we're speaking with CNN's Tal Heinrich here on Louis Live. Other sad story in cricket involved Israel, believe it or not, in a game in Ashdod. Tal, tell us a bit about that.
So it's pretty crazy. Let's go back to the Hughes incident because, so as I said before, cricket in Israel is not such a big sport. I didn't even know until this other incident that there were like players playing cricket here, and there's an entire league in Israel apparently. So a few days ago there was a game between the Lod team and Ashdod, and a referee 15 minutes after this game started was hit by a cricket ball and he died. He was a 60-year-old man, and the ironic thing about it that the players were supposed, they did stand they took a standing ovation, a 1 minute of silence in memorial of the cricket player, the Australian one, Philip Hughes, who was killed. And 15 minutes after, the exact same incident occurs here in Israel, in Ashdod. It's not the exact same because it's not a freakish one.
It hit him in the stomach. This is with the referee.
And he didn't wear any kind of, protection. He wasn't wearing a helmet. And unlike the players who are supposed to wear helmets all the time. So the ball hit his head, I think, and he collapsed. And then some of the players tried to CPR him, and the emergency arrived there. The emergency force, they evacuated him to the Ashkelon hospital, and they couldn't save him, unfortunately. And from what I heard in the newspaper, his widow, who's around 60-year-old, I guess, his name is, by the way, Hillel Oscar.
Right.
Hillel Oscar, 60-year-old. So she said, I'm quoting Ari, a moment before Hillel got out to the game, he said that he's going to stand like 1 minute of silence in memorial of Philip Hughes, and he told me that he will send me a picture so I can upload it to Facebook, but he didn't make it. He didn't.
Right.
And instead, she got this, sad announcement that her husband passed away. Yeah.
It's not a lot we can really say about it. That's the situation. These are very two freakish deaths, very sad. They were, one is a player, one is an umpire. They're involved with the sport that they love. We had talked about a segment a few weeks ago about Howie Oyster, who was a umpire in baseball that died while umpiring a game. These things are sad, but we do want to obviously report on them and not ignore them, partly out of respect to the people that passed away and their families. It should be known that they were involved in something they liked doing when they passed on, and if there are ways to improve the situation, that's one reason I want to cover the story, so someone out there smarter than me could figure this out, how to make protective helmets even better. If somehow it could save the throat, if that's possible, it could block it. And all umpires should be wearing all protective gear all time, even if they're 60 years old and think it doesn't somehow apply to them. And
standing on the sideline.
Yeah, anywhere on the field, anything can happen. Everyone's got to be protected. I'm obviously not blaming Mr. Oscar, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that the cricket game could be so lethal.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Nobody knew, I guess. Yeah.
Who would have thought? And it shows you anything can happen with this type of sport. So everyone's got to be careful as possible. Tal, we got to run. Thank you for the time. I know it's a sad story.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Next time, I promise you we'll have more positive story, or obviously most stories are going to be more positive than this. So
yeah,
we'll have something more positive next time. Tal, thank you so much. Be well, and we'll speak with you soon.
Thank you.
All right, Tal Heinrich from CNN, talking about the sad story that happened in cricket, again with a player and an umpire. Not much I could really say about it. Our prayers, obviously, with their families and their friends. We'll take a quick break. We'll talk soccer on the other side. This is Louis Live on TLV1.
שוב עוזבת ואחר כך חוזרת, מתרחקת ואז מתקרבת, את פעם ככה ופעם אחרת, את שונאת אותי ואז את אוהבת, כמו קרוסלה שתמיד מסתופפת, או שתבואי או שתתני לי ללכת. את בחורה מקרח אפילו שאת מה שהיה לי לתת לך, כדאי שתחליטי מה תעשיתי. אני לא ארדוף אחרייך לנצח, את בחורה מקרח, אפילו שאת פרח. נתתי כל מה שהיה לי לתת לך, כדאי שתחליטי מה תעשיתי. אני לא ארדוף אחרייך לנצח. מתקשרת ואז מנתקת, קצת לוחשת ואחר כך צועקת, מקפיאה אותי ואז מחממת. אולי אתה מיצה עליי, אולי את פוחדת, תמונת נדע שעולה ויורדת, לא יודעת אם
All right, back here on Louis Live, we're going to switch to the world of soccer. On the line right now, he's in transit, BBC World Service correspondent and freelance writer Raphael Gellar. Raphael, welcome back to the show.
How you doing, man?
Hey, doing great. So let's talk about a very interesting, controversial topic regarding the Israeli military and the Palestinian Football Association, because the Israeli military, this was about a week ago, they searched the headquarters in the West Bank, and then they got in some hot water for that. Tell us why that is.
Basically, the Israeli army was controlling or doing some patrols in the vicinity of the Palestinian Football Association office, and according to the report from the IDF, the soldiers came upon people that they required to see their paperwork. The paperwork, these are Palestinians, of course. The Palestinians said that their paperwork was inside the Palestinian Football Association. Thus, they told the soldiers to come in with them to the offices, and basically that's what happened. I think the media kind of there was some headlines that said that the IDF, raided the Palestinian Football Association office, but it really wasn't that. It was more of they just, went in to look at routine paperwork. Obviously, still, it's, still kind of a problem that it happened, but I'm sure we'll touch up on that in the next few questions.
Yeah, I mean, the president of the Asian Football Confederation, I apologize if you listen to the show for butchering his name, but his name is Sheikh Salman. He had a problem with that, and I don't know why that is. Like, what you just said seems pretty routine, so why would the president of the Asian Football Confederation have a problem with it?
Well, I mean, it's not, you don't hear every day an intimidating army, go into a football federation or association office.
Good point.
And look at people's paperwork. So it's one of those things where if you actually, read more than the headline, you realize, it's not that big of a deal. For example, when I first saw this come out, when it first was breaking and I was starting to follow it, a lot of the headlines I read were very misleading. Once you learn more about the story, you hear more about the story, you realize it wasn't as big of a deal as it actually was. But at the same time, like I said, it is a problem. Even if they were checking paperwork, you have the controversy of whether the soldiers should be there or not, in Palestine, the West Bank, Judah Samaria, whatever you want to call it. So you have the whole controversial issue of that. And also the whole idea of FIFA is to not mix politics with sports, and just having Israeli soldiers in a Palestinian office, whether it's a country or not, it's still an office. There's still a federation. FIFA recognizes them as a Palestinian Football Federation. They're allowed to participate in tournaments. They will be participating in the Asian Cup, which is, I think, why you saw such a response from the head of the Asian Confederation, because the Palestinian national team will be participating in the Asian Cup, which is equivalent to the European Championship that you and I have been talking about the last few weeks. So it's a pretty big deal. The Palestine team made that. So I think that's where everything is coming from.
Again, we're speaking with BBC World Service correspondent Raphael Gellar here on Louis Live. Raphael, let's go to an interesting story. Since a gag order was taken off, if you will, we found out that the plan was in August and September for a reign of, they say about 34 Palestinians were suspected of carrying terrorist attacks, and one of the targets was Teddy Stadium. And for those who don't know, Teddy Stadium is in Jerusalem, where many soccer games are held, and a very intense soccer games between right-wing teams, left-wing teams, all this kind of stuff. Wanted to know if you could touch a bit about that. Were the terrorists planning to go after fans or players? If you have any information about that at all.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate if you could speak a little louder. It's a bit difficult to hear you.
No problem.
But yeah, I mean, basically, this happened a few months ago. There was a gag order on it. It's very troubling, report that there's expected to be a major terrorist attack by Hamas, terrorist organization. So what's scary about this is, in big matches at Teddy, there could be tens of thousands of people.
Right.
Regularly, there aren't that many people just because, they don't have that amount of supporters. I mean, I guess that you could say they do, but they don't show up to every big match. But in big matches, where Hapoel Tel Aviv's playing or Sachnein's playing or the big clubs come, this is a venue that can hold, 30-plus thousand. So this is very troubling, and it's good that it got a lot of, news coverage across the world. It was reported in BBC and CNN and this or that. The thing that's, to me, the most interesting is whether the club knew about this or whether the club was also not told due to the gag order. I have a feeling the club did have an idea and just, legally wasn't allowed to talk about it. But in a time, when we're dealing with so much tension in this nation, it's very difficult to hear that there was going to be an attack on a stadium with, like I said, potentially tens of thousands of people.
Raphael, would you also say if the team did know, would it be possible they wouldn't want to tell their fans because they would be worried about a lack of ticket sales? Obviously, if you hear that terrorists are going to attack a stadium, you're not going to necessarily want to go. I want to know if that would be one point of view. And also, this particular story was talked about on our station. The idea was that the terrorists would try to kidnap someone and do a prisoner swap. Is that what the goal was of attacking a stadium of football fans?
Well, to answer your first question, it's actually pretty interesting because a lot of people would argue that maybe if the fans knew, maybe more fans would come. Let's remember that Beitar Jerusalem fans
right.
are known for being, right-wing fans,
Yeah.
extremists, whatever. Not even all right-wing, but known for having a lot of pride of being Israeli. And maybe, they would have had more fans come to show support. I mean, that sounds a little ludicrous, but it's something that I can see.
Yeah.
On the other end, since this has come out, a lot of fans, said, we're going to support the team even more now that we were a target of the team. And the fan organizations have been organizing, events to make sure that there's more people at the games, to show terrorism that, terrorism cannot win. The second part of your question, I think it's still kind of unclear. Obviously, a lot of people were arrested. Dozens of people, from what I understand, were arrested. So this was going to be a very big attack. Most likely, someone would be taken hostage. But I think the biggest issue here would have been the amount of casualties. I mean, if a bomb or something like this goes off in one of the sections that's that's full, or not even a bomb, but if just someone starts stabbing people when you have so many people in one area, that's usually when you see a lot of casualties. So if you had a guy just go around stabbing people or shooting people, where there's 3,000 people in a tiny area, you could have dozens of fatalities. So, it's a very troubling report. It's scary that a football stadium was involved, but I think the Jerusalem fans are gonna, respond in a interesting way and in a way to show that terrorism doesn't win.
I like that. I mean, the sad thing is because Israel's had such history with terrorism, they figure out different ways to deal with it, and the response very well could be to go forward. I think in the United States, if this would happen in a big city, you might see fans kind of get scared. They have less experience with terrorism than Israel does. Again, we're speaking with Raphael Gellar, BBC World Service correspondent. Last few minutes we have left with you. Let's talk a bit about the Premier League, some of the standings, some of the things going on there. So go ahead and take it away.
Well, I just wanted to note that Kiryat Shmona, a city of 23,000 people, 27,000 in some censuses, are winning the league right now, which is very impressive. They won it a few years back. I think this team is more talented than that team. You have the right combination of veterans, young guys, foreigners, great coaching, great technical staff, great everything. They're in first place right now. It's really, impressive to see them in that place, especially since they're not in the top four in Israel in budgets, in financial budget. The second thing is Maccabi Tel Aviv are in third place. They've been playing really well, but they did not beat Kiryat Shmona in what was tabbed as the game of the year. It was number one against number two. Kiryat Shmona was number one. Maccabi Tel Aviv were number two. Maccabi Tel Aviv had a chance, to catch up. Instead, Kiryat Shmona won and got to even be more ahead in first place. So it's going to be an interesting, a few months down the line. And also Maccabi Haifa, who started the season in terrible form. After having a beautiful stadium open this year, investing millions and millions, and not just shekel, but euros on bringing in, a good staff, good players, finally got a big win last night in front of 31,000 people against Hapoel Tel Aviv, and literally went from the relegation zone all the way to fifth place. That's how tight and close the Israeli league is. If you win a couple games here and other teams lose, you can go from second to last place to top 5, and your season can now change. So that was a big morale booster. And then finally, Be'er Sheva, who have been, a very interesting team. They have a new owner who's come in the last few years and really decided to put a lot of money into this team. They were in the second division, the second tier of Israeli football a few years back. The new owner came in, invested a lot of money in the club and a lot of, getting the fans back to the stadium. And that's really special to see in a city like Be'er Sheva, where it's a really big city. It has the potential to be a great sports city. They don't have a basketball team in the first or second division, which is insane for how big the city is. So it's important that a team like Be'er Sheva, gets the opportunity to have a good football team that's competitive, and they're right now in second place. So it looks like we're going to have a fun competition with Kiryat Shmona, Maccabi Tel Aviv, and Hapoel Be'er Sheva down. We still have 3/4 of the season left, but the first fourth of the season has been very exciting.
All right, and Raphael will be on this program throughout the season to give us more updates and previews of big games. Raphael, we appreciate the time. Again, BBC World Service correspondent Raphael Gellar here on Louis Live. Raphael, thanks and be well.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, quick break. On the other side, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather in 2015. Will this actually happen? Find out on the other side with Brynn, Jonathan Butler. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live, fresh off his Sukkot appearance, talking about Ali Foreman. We got a lot of great feedback on that. He is the author of the book Split Decision, which can be found on Amazon and Kindle, and also the filmmaker of the movie Split Decision. That is a story of Gellar Rigondeaux, who is the Cuban defector boxer who became champion of the world. Please welcome back to the show, Brynn, Jonathan Butler. Brynn, how you doing out there?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great, especially this recent news. I mean, we've been hearing about this for 4 or 5 years, the potential of a fight between, of course, Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. There's been a lot of turmoil. Let's start first with why this fight hasn't happened. You said recently that these fights, if they do happen, it's almost a miracle. And usually we don't see big fights. If we see them, we get lucky. And a lot of people say this is due between Floyd's relationship with Bob Arum, why it hasn't happened. So just touch a bit about that, why we have not seen this fight up until this point.
Well, I think originally there was the testing for PEDs, which was an obstacle on Pacquiao's end, being resistant to getting tested. He said he had an aversion to needles. Absolutely a huge impediment was the relationship between Floyd and Bob Arum. Arum originally promoted Floyd. Floyd was never really happy with the success that he had in terms of pay-per-view ratings and audience. Never that successful as a team. Once Floyd left Arum, he just exploded with the fights he was getting, sort of going heel, as it were, and becoming what he is now, which is the most marketable athlete on the planet. And I think there's a lot of enmity between him and Arum in terms of that he feels like I could have been doing this all along. So those I think that personal thing between Floyd and Arum has been a big obstacle, and Arum always plays up that the fight could be around the corner to sort of promote Pacquiao, rather than to be honest and on the level with fans in terms of him trying to promote that fight. So the fight was very close to happening in 2010. There was an issue with the split of the money, which has been another issue. Before Pacquiao was defeated by Marquez, I think he wanted a 50-50 split. Subsequent to being knocked out by Marquez and having some lower pay-per-views than Floyd feels entitled, and now Manny is finally agreeable to the fact that Floyd deserves the lion's share of the purse should they fight. So I think we're as close as we have ever been to it actually happening.
All right, let's start. So many questions to ask, but let's start first the steroids thing, because for those who don't know, Manny Pacquiao at one point, I believe, fought about 105 pounds. Now he fights at 147. That's a little odd. He also seemed to get better at about 29. I mean, he was not well known. He was known among boxing circles, but the public, he really exploded around 28, 29. If you've seen pictures of Manny Pacquiao, I'm not kidding, there are muscles in his armpit. So what do you think, Brynn Jonathan Butler? Is Floyd right to assume or accuse Manny Pacquiao of PEDs?
Well, I think with what the testing is, talking to Lance Armstrong about PED testing, he said that within 6 hours of taking something, it could be out of your system. So dictating when you're tested is everything about being caught if you're going to get caught. It sounds like you'd have to be astonishingly stupid to get caught or wanting to get caught.
Right.
So I think everybody is suspect, and Floyd is completely, it's a completely legitimate concern. I think, on the other hand, the fact that Floyd gets to dictate the window of when opponents are chosen to fight would make him a prime suspect of himself using PEDs, because he gets to control that window of being tested and when he's using and all that in terms of all the training and benefits of recovery that PEDs would give you. So I think a lot of other people have cast aspersions that, maybe Floyd has been using too. Floyd came up from 12 pounds originally in the Olympics, so he's made the same jump. It's just he hasn't been as successful or dramatic in how he was beating opponents as Pacquiao. So maybe there's some hypocrisy on his side. There was a lawsuit for PEDs between Pacquiao suing Floyd for defamation for claiming he was cheating. And one of the things that I heard from reporters was that it would have caused Floyd to have to disclose all of his blood tests throughout his career. And that was something Floyd was not open to, so he quickly settled the lawsuit, which is interesting.
It is.
Doesn't mean he's guilty, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and Floyd is in the best shape of his life now at 36. If you look at fights when he was 27, 26, he looks like a skinny kid. He looks like now like a muscular man. And he also, if we talk about athletes don't get better past 35, and he's in the prime, almost in the prime of his career, so he is definitely suspect. Let's also talk about, I want to go real quick with the whole heel good guy thing, because Floyd, before with Bob Arum, was no more as pretty boy Floyd, the nice guy, nice smile, and then when he left, he turned into a villain. He started cursing in interviews, he started insulting his opponents, all that kind of stuff. Did Floyd calculate, in his mind, make a decision, calculate a decision, I'm going to be the villain because the villain will make more money?
100%. I think he just stole the narrative that the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, had in WWF, which is everybody was cheering and paying to watch him lose. He made you hate him, and whatever opponent was stepping in to fight against him, everybody was thrilled by the idea that maybe this complete jerk is at risk of losing. And that's a brilliant strategy. I mean, that's Vince McMahon with WWF. I don't care if you love the character or you hate the character, as long as you care about the character.
Right.
And Pretty Boy Floyd had no narrative. You know, he hasn't got hit much. Well, that's not interesting. That's not going to sell tickets. But a guy who's burning up $100 bills in clubs, just being a thoroughly distasteful individual, and saying he's better than everybody with this lifestyle that he's leading, people would love to pay to watch that guy lose.
Right.
And Floyd was very selective in choosing people where, he would aggravate people. If he was fighting a Mexican and he only fights on Mexican holidays in May and September, he'd wear a sombrero out to the ring. Just anything to get a rise and create an emotion and sell fights.
Yeah.
So I give him full credit. I think he did a lot of something similar to what Tyson did after prison, where he was fighting nobodies, but it was the biggest show going in sports, and Tyson could fight you or me and make $25 million, and people would pay for it.
Yeah, I could see. Imagine Floyd being with his friends at a club, burning $100 bills, and they say, "What are you doing?" He said, No. It's a business expense. I get paid more money if people think I'm an a-hole, so we're going to do this." And they burn the money, and it works out for him. And real quick, the sombrero, when he fought Oscar De La Hoya on Cinco de Mayo, he wore the sombrero backwards, so he does like to agitate. Again, we're speaking with Brynn Jonathan Butler, the author of Split Decision, which is available on Amazon and Kindle. Let's talk about the money. Again, Jewish show. I always like to bring that up. Floyd's getting the lion's share. Lion's share of what? Because we heard a few years ago the fight may be worth about $100 million. I'm hearing it could be $150. What's the money of the total fight and what each guy would get?
What Aram has said, and this has never been discussed before, is if Zhou Shiming is on the undercard, who's now a phenomenon in China and across Asia for that matter, is he would charge the Chinese audience $5 per pay-per-view and could theoretically get, I think it was in excess of $700 million for the pay-per-view, strictly from the Asian audience based on Zhou Shiming and the interest in Pacquiao, who's also an Asian phenomenon,
right,
and Mayweather. And then he would hope to get $95 per pay-per-view in the United States and generate at least $300 million there. So we're talking about $1 billion worth of revenue just from the pay-per-view. Not the live gate, just pay-per-view money. So the figures that I heard between the two fighters was Floyd could get in the neighborhood a guaranteed $100 to $120 million. Pacquiao could get in the neighborhood of $60 to $80 million guaranteed.
Oh.
And then if it sells very well, there'd be a back end that could be considerably more.
I think there are people rolling around in their graves thinking how someone can make that much money in one night. Okay, so, and if this would take place next year, Floyd has, I believe, 2 fights left on his contract with Showtime, so this could be at the end of his career. I mean, he could really go out with a bang. Let's analyze the fight. I think this is something similar what Sugar Ray Leonard did with Marvin Hagler. They were going to originally fight in 1982. He let them wait about 5 years when Hagler went down south, was able to beat him. I think Floyd did the same thing with Manny Pacquiao. Floyd would be the favorite going in, but how much of a favorite do you believe he would be going in?
Well, I think the timing has come around. After Marquez, I think the interest in the fight went down considerably from the crescendo that was hit around 2009, 2010. After Pacquiao's performance against Algieri 2 weeks ago, fighting a much younger guy, a very elusive guy, much taller, a lot of reach, and Pacquiao looked as energetic as ever, knocked his opponent down 6 times. Floyd has looked vulnerable against what I think is fair to say is B-level competition with Maidana. He was hurt a couple of times, chased around, has never looked more vulnerable than the Cotto fight and the Maidana fight. So I think for a lot of people, there's a kind of reevaluation of what this fight is, where Pacquiao looks like he hasn't slowed down as much as people were saying, and Floyd has slowed down a lot from where he was, say, 2 years ago. And I think Floyd is going to be 38, actually, in February. Pacquiao is going to be 36 in December. So I think now it's become a lot more of a pick-em fight than it was over the last 2 years. I think the consensus was is Floyd can box safely and really mitigate the risk and dominate Pacquiao and just win another unanimous decision. now I think after Algieri, we think, well, Pacquiao still has the speed, still has the stamina, the power's there. He's knocking a very game opponent down 6 times. Maybe Pacquiao can get the better of a slightly aging, slowing down Floyd. And then there's the other side, which is just Floyd is too good. He's a much better boxer. He's much better at, adapting and can mitigate the risk against Pacquiao and just dominate and cruise his way to a unanimous decision.
All right, last question we have for you. I found this very interesting, but Bob Arum in the interviews not Bob Arum, but Freddie Roach, who is Manny Pacquiao's coach, said in an interview he would like to get Bill Clinton to get involved with the negotiations. I just want to know your thoughts about that.
Well, yeah, I think Jesus should come back to earth also and try and promote the fight. I mean, if we're going for anybody, why stop there?
Right.
Who would Jesus root for in this fight? That, to me, is the big question that hasn't been asked.
Well, probably Pacquiao's more religious, even though he tends to have affairs and a gambling problem. But I guess, I don't know. Floyd wears a cross and then goes out partying with girls and drinking. I don't know. Yeah, Jesus would have a pick'em fight too, I guess.
No, I think it's absurd. Why would Bill Clinton enter into this? But I mean, Warren Buffett was at a fight on Saturday, a big fight that was in Omaha, shown on HBO, and there's Warren Buffett saying, I'm a fight fan. Maybe I'm not the most famous guy in Nebraska after this fighter who's fighting tonight. So
right.
Who knows? I mean, anybody can show up, but doesn't really seem appropriate to me, but
yeah.
Who knows?
Well, that's what I said before the show started in the studio. People were asking why would Bill Clinton get involved. I don't know. He couldn't make it a deal between Israel and Palestine. I think he wants to make this deal for his legacy. I don't really know, but anyway.
Well, the visibility. I mean, this is if this event is playing. I mean, I heard somebody put it this way, that if there are 4 street corners where, Mark McGuire's at his peak hitting home runs, or Michael Jordan's at his prime, playing one-on-one, Wayne Gretzky's playing, and then there's a fight that's on, everybody in the neighborhood is going to go watch the fight.
Right. And this event would be the biggest event in sports history, right? When you break down, I mean, not just money. Actually, I mean, money alone would be enough, but this would be the biggest event ever.
Not even close. It would be people I know who've gone to Frazier Ali won. They all say this would be considerably bigger.
So that's what's
I'm
on
not saying it would be better. I'm
right.
saying it would be bigger.
That's what I mean too. When I say the biggest, I don't mean in quality or the action of the fight. What I mean basically is money and the attention to it. There would be anything close to it. I mean, second place is perhaps the Bite fight, Holyfield Tyson 2, or one of Floyd's fights, but this would certainly be the biggest. We got to run. Everyone get Brynn Jonathan Butler's book on Amazon or Kindle, Split Decision, great book. I'm in a piece of it, so I know it's a good book. Brynn, we got to run.
That's true.
That's right. Brynn, we got to run. We'll certainly be in touch, probably like in 12 minutes on Facebook. So thank you again for the time, and we will speak soon. Be well.
My pleasure, and there's a Mike Tyson interview on Amazon as well, Kindle Singles interview that I think your listeners might enjoy.
Yes, Brynn did that interview with Mike Tyson. Want to check out the latest Iron Mike? Check that out. Brynn, thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. God, $120 million. I can't. I'll be thinking about that for a long, long time. I can't wrap my head around that one. But anyway, if it happens, it happens, and we'll talk about it. Anyways, we're going to take a break. On the other side, the latest with Omri Moshe. His second stint with the Cavs could be his best. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Louis Live. You can email me at longlivelouislive@gmail.com. Check out the station on Twitter at TLV1.fm. Now, Omri Caspi is not Michael Jordan. I'm going to say that again. Omri Caspi is not Michael Jordan, but he is Israel's first player in the NBA, so obviously there's a lot of tension in Israel about him, and Omri had a pretty good game a couple of days ago. He scored 22 points, so that's good. And his career high was 24 in his rookie year. So he's starting to get it together. Talking about that is someone who always has it together. CBS's Yossi G. Yossi G, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Ari. How are you?
Doing great. So Omri's been with 4 teams in 6 years, and this team, the Kings, this is his second stint. And the Kings are doing okay. They're 9-8, and he's had a pretty good season so far, more or less. He's about 10 points a game. And he got the season high of 22 for any King this year, early in the season. What's been clicking a little bit better for Omri and the team in Sacramento as a whole?
Well, for starters, yes, Omri is not he might be the Israeli version of Michael Jordan, but certainly he is not Michael Jordan. For one night, though, he played like it. With regards to the team, when you look at who they have on the squad, and right now Omri Caspi's role is as a starting role is less. It's more from the bench where he will come on during the game to relieve guys like Rudy Gay and help out DeMarcus Cousins along as he's being played at the 3 position, a small forward position. When he was in Houston, they played him mostly at the 4, at the power forward, but he's a little undersized for that. And when he was traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, he only lasted 2 weeks on the Pelicans with the actual team before he was released and then picked up by Sacramento for round number 2. What they've done, and specifically what when you look at Coach Mike Malone, what he's done with the team to bring out the best with the pieces that Omri has around him, to bring out the best with Omri. I mean, he's having career years right now at this point. He's averaging about 8.5 points a game, 3.5 rebounds per game, and he ranks number 1 on the team in field goal percentage at just over 54%. So he's doing very well, and I think just the position, the situation, he's learned from his past mistakes, he's learned from his first go-around, and his various stops throughout the NBA, what he can do in order to make himself better, as well as his teammates around him.
Now, it was interesting because he scored those 22 points against the Pelicans. As you mentioned, that was a team that cut him, and Omri said the reason for that was because the Pelicans were loaded at the 4 spot. That's the power forward, and Omri didn't really fit there, but Omri also he's a bit of a tweener. He's not really a small forward or power forward. Has that been part of the reason for some of his struggles in the past few years?
Certainly, because when you come from playing in a different type of a league, when you're playing in Europe where players are a little bit, their mindset, the mentality is a little different. Their obviously their gifts and abilities are not necessarily always at the NBA level. So the talent that you may possess may match up better on the Euro stage, and not always does that same talent translate very well to the NBA. And that's really what has been happening with Omri Caspi since he was drafted by the Kings a couple of years ago in 2009-2010, where he has just simply struggled to find his niche. But I think now, with what Sacramento is really demanding from its team, and when you had guys get injured, and you have somebody like Caspi, the veteran that he is, the experience that he brings to the table, it is a good position for the Kings to be in with Caspi when they need somebody to step up.
I kind of feel that this is Caspi's, I don't know if last chance is the right word, but the window is certainly shutting because he's 26, and this is his 4th team, as I mentioned. And if you look at his salary, he made $2 million a few years ago and went gradually down. He's at about $1 million. I feel like if he doesn't get it right this time, he's back on a plane to Israel. What do you think?
I certainly think that's a definite possibility. But when you look at the games that he started, both against the New Orleans Pelicans and then against his other old team, the Houston Rockets, the next game where he scored 14 points of 5 of 9 shooting. The 2 games that he started, he's actually competitive. I mean, he's actually doing things with the basketball. He's actually having the ability to put points on the board and get his other teammates involved. Even coming off the bench, he's able to do that, but it's obviously to a much more limited degree. I mean, just against the Grizzlies last night, 6 points in 15 minutes, 2 of 4 shooting. He's able to do things when he has the basketball. It's not like he's completely inhibited to not actually doing anything. He can do things. So it's a matter of getting starts. The problem is the Kings have this guy named Rudy Gay, who's just a little bit better than Omri Caspi when push comes to shove, who's there as a starter at the number 3. So for Caspi really to be able to have a resurrection of his career, so to speak, a triat hamesim, as you'd say
there we go. Right.
He needs to really make the most of every single minute of every single moment he's on the basketball court.
Again, we're speaking with CBS's Yossi Goldstein here on Louis Live. But let's go quickly and talk about David Blatt in Cleveland. We're going to keep an eye on him because he was the former head coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv. The Cavs with LeBron James and Irving and Love are 8-7. Now, is this just a slow start because these players are not used to playing each other, or should people panic in Cleveland?
I think it's more so that the players, I mean, you look at who they got in the offseason. I mean, it's Kevin Love, it's LeBron, it's Kyrie Irving. These guys have never played with one another. So you're coming to not so much for Kyrie Irving and LeBron, but for Kevin Love, he's coming to a new city, and the expectations and the hype that surrounded the team going into the season was almost backbreaking. And throw on top of that a rookie head coach. He's never, all of the kudos that goes out to David Blatt on the international stage. He's never coached in the NBA.
Right.
And basketball in the United States is a little bit of or in North America rather, is a little bit of a different animal than in the rest of the world. So I think that you don't need panic. Just chill out, like Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers said a few weeks ago. Just relax. Everything will be fine in Cleveland. It will just take time for the team to gel. The other issue, though, that I have with the Cavaliers, that in order for them to actually gel, is LeBron James, because you have seen in the first few games where he and David Blatt are not on the same page. And so until the two of them get on the same page and Blatt figures out how to coach LeBron, and LeBron understands that Blatt is the coach and it's not he being the coach, until those two things happen, this team will be still going in circles.
Do you think that can happen? I mean, this is LeBron James, 4-time MVP, 2-time champion. Is he going to listen to a rookie coach, NBA rookie, and follow his instructions?
Well, all I will say is this. Look at the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning. Everybody believes that after Peyton Manning's career is over, he's going to become an offensive coordinator right then and there, because right now he's basically an offensive coordinator on the field. But he allows the offensive coordinator to coach. He allows his head coach to coach. It's all a matter of personality. And if LeBron does not allow for that to happen, then Blatt is going to be one and done.
Wow, again, we're speaking with CBS's Yossi Goldstein. We got to run, but before we let you go, I want to say on the air, I know I said this before, but you were right and I was wrong about LeBron James. You said he was going to go to Cleveland. I thought he'd stay in Miami. You were right. I want to say that again on the air, even though I said it earlier. So thank you.
Well, listen, Ari, you should always listen to me because you know that I'm right, and that's just how it is.
Well, that's why I had you on the show. Again,
I appreciate it.
There you go. All right, CBS's Yossi Goldstein here on Louis Live. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll keep an eye on both the Cavs and Omri Moshe Caspi. So thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Sure thing.
All right, quick break. On the other side, the latest with the Jerusalem Kings and why you should play for them. This is Louis Live on TLV1.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just up? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. She'll quit my wife because it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creep. grasping to control.
All right, back here on Louis Live on TLV1. I love that song. That's Basket Case by Green Day, and that music courtesy of Tomer Gershwin, who makes all the music for my show. Shout out to him, and shout out to Adam, who's producing tonight my program. We're going to talk about American football in Israel. On the line right now, the defensive coordinator of the Jerusalem Kings, Benjamin Bloch. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ari. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, you guys had a tough loss last week to the Silverbacks, and part of the reason, my understanding, was a lack of players that suited up for the game. I understand you had 16 players in total that suited up?
I think we had a few more, but it definitely was not the turnout that we would like.
And that's obviously tough. Anyone who knows football, there in the IFL, it's 9 guys on each side. That wore the players pretty thin, and as a result, there were some injuries that happened in the game?
There were, but you know what? I think we fought through a lot of those injuries, but still not the outcome that we would like.
Now, in the IFL, there's an interesting rule that Commissioner Batella Freeman put in regarding foreign players. I want to know if you can talk a bit about that rule, because that rule has seemed to hamper your team more than the other teams in the Israel Football League.
So it's not actually a rule Batella himself put in. It's a rule that Leeds Vada put in.
Steve Leibowitz, by the way, is the president of the IFL.
It was a rule that, in my own opinion, was targeted at the Tel Aviv Sabres.
Huh.
You know, there are people give other rationales. Oh, it's good for team stability. It's good for this. It's good for that. People were tired of John Sharon and Saeed Abulafa going out and doing a better job of recruiting than everybody, and then beating them on the field.
And the rule, if you can describe in detail, it regards the recruitment of foreign players. Tell us a bit about what the rule actually says.
The rule says that you can only have 8 foreign players on your roster, 5 of which can be suited up for a game. Now, people can explain to me why the rule for 8 foreign players exists, but nobody, including those on the people who are on the VOD of the league, have been able to explain why only 5 can suit up.
That is a bit strange, and that is going to affect your team a great deal, because a lot of your team is comprised of yeshiva students who are here in Israel for the year, and therefore they're not citizens.
It's had a negative effect on our team. Certainly, it's put teams like Herzliya, it's put in a tough spot. It's put the Rebels in a tough spot. It's put a lot of teams in a tough spot, in a spot where they can't take guys on that they want to. In my personal opinion, it's degraded the talent level of this league. And I understand to some extent why they like the rule. A thought member told me that it creates more stability and that they don't like the model of teams that use a lot of Americans. Well, lo and behold, you know, I'm not going to say who this person is, but this person coached a team for a long time that lost quite a few title games to a team with a lot of American players.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the problem is American, you know, I hate this is going to sound kind of prejudiced, but American players are going to probably play American football better than Israeli players. Is that fair to say?
That's beyond fair to say.
Again, we're speaking with the defensive coordinator of the Jerusalem Kings, Benjamin Bloch. And the reason why I want to have you on, again, I wanted to set the stage so people know the situation. I feel like that's an injustice to your team, this rule. And I want to give you an opportunity to, on my show, tell people why they should join the Kings and help you guys win some games. So go ahead.
If you're looking to play football and you want to join a brotherhood, and you will play, and you know to play, and you want to get on the field and hit somebody in the mouth, the Kings is the place for you. We don't mess around. It may not be the smoothest all the time. We may not be the fanciest schmanciest. We don't have the most money. But I'll tell you what, if you're looking to get out there and hit, I mean, if I was something that's bigger than you, if you're looking to dig deep and fight hard, then the Kings is where it's at. We're scrappy. Nobody likes us. And if you feel like you got a chip on your shoulder or you just want to come out and smack somebody in the mouth, this is the place for you.
And they get to learn from you if on the defensive end, and you have done quite a bit in your football career. You were the All-IFL center a few years back, and you're going to teach these guys, if they come on, how to play football.
Yeah, I would like it also for those who know how to play football. You are more than welcome. For those of you who have played, you are especially more than welcome.
Tell us a bit about the
absolutely.
Tell us a bit about the practices. I understand a lot of them are very grueling in the workouts. So tell us what occurs in those.
What occurs?
Yes.
Well, you suit up. There's warm-ups. We keep you moving, and then we like to get you in the hit. No messing around. Pad smashing. Technique, focus, discipline, and attitude. But you know what? You can't play football if you're not willing to hit.
Right.
And that's what we do.
All right. So, Ben, give me one word that would sell someone joining the Canes. I think the word starts with an H. What is that word?
The word starts with an H.
Yeah, it'd be hitting. That's what you keep talking about.
Hitting,
That's,
yes.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
to hit.
That's what you're selling. If people are joining the Canes, they're going to hit people.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. I mean, they could get hit too, though, right? You got to be fair. Let them know the other side.
You know what? I've played the game for a little bit. If you're gonna hit people, you're gonna get hit too.
Yeah.
That's just the way. That's just the nature of football. But yeah, you know what? If you like to hit, it's for you.
All right.
You know, we're a ragtag group.
All right. How
But
could
if you're looking to get in?
Yeah.
Hit, you're there.
Okay. If they want to get in, should they contact you? Well, what's the best way they should do that?
What is the best way? They should. They can contact myself through you, or they can ask to join the Kings Facebook page, or you can show up Tuesday night at Kraft Stadium at 9:30 p.m. or Wednesday at 8.
Okay.
And they should come out. If you're ready to hit, you're ready to commit, we got a spot for you, and you're going in.
All right. Good stuff. Benjamin Block, the DC, the Jerusalem Canes. Thanks for being on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. That's going to conclude the end of the show tonight. Real quick programming note. Next week, we hope to have on Yossi Friedman to talk about a very interesting story regarding wrestling. The wrestler in Israel is going to try to make it in America, and we hope to catch up with Diana Redmond as well. I want to thank everyone for listening, and thank you to our guest. We began the program with CNN's Tal Heinrich telling us about the very sad story of a Australian player who died in cricket, as well as a referee that died in Ashdod. Obviously, our prayers are with them, their family, and their friends. BBC World Service correspondent Raphael Gellar talked about the potential terrorist attack at Teddy Stadium that was designed to target fans of those teams, and hopefully that has all been taken care of and there won't be any of those in the future. Brynn Jonathan Butler talked about the possible match between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather in 2015 that could net Floyd Mayweather a guaranteed $120 million if the fight goes down. We will certainly keep an eye on that. Yossi Goldstein talked about Omri's 22 points last week against the New Orleans Pelicans. And we ended the program with Big Benjamin Block, the defensive coordinator of the Jerusalem Canes, saying if you want to hit, go join his team. You will get in. You will hit. You will learn how to hit. You'll learn technique. Stay tuned for a lot of great programming, a lot of great stuff. That's it for tonight. God bless and good night.